An Ohio mayor resigned earlier over the fact that he had made some pretty insane remarks about ice fishing during a council meeting. So he makes a slippery slope argument, which is already pretty weak argument to make, but this is a slippery slope argument on steroids. Without further ado, let's go to the former mayor now of Hudson, Ohio, and what he had to say about restricting ice fishing.
Additionally, if you open this up to ice fishing, while on the surface it sounds good, then what happens next year? Does someone come back and say, I want an ice shanty on Hudson Springs Park for X amount of time? And if you then allow ice fishing with shanties, then that leads to another problem. Prostitution. And now you got the police chief and the police department involved. Just data points to consider.
Okay. So I'm not in favor of shanties.
I have one more thing.
Okay, so that was now former mayor. That was now former mayor of Hudson, Ohio, and his name is Craig Shubert. And I do want to watch the video again, but a different version that zooms in on the gentleman next to him, because as he's making the argument, that man is feeling what we're all feeling. Let's watch.
Additionally, if you open this up to ice fishing, while on the surface it sounds good, then what happens next year? Does someone come back and say, I want an ice shanty on Hudson Springs Park for X amount of time? And if you then allow ice fishing with shanties, then that leads to another problem. Prostitution. And now you got the police chief and the police department involved. Just data points to consider.
That was awesome. My favorite part was when so that gentleman next to him like goes, no, this is a bad argument. But at some point, the now former mayor looks at him for like validation. He's like, stop it, get off of it, get off. You could see it in his face, like stop talking, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, if you watch all the way to the end of the clip, when the other guy makes a joke about why he's been opposed to shanties all along, this guy then pats the mayor on the back like it's gonna be okay. Like, so he doesn't hate the guy at all, right? He's not necessarily opposed to him.
He's trying to help him out.
Right, I don't know their politics, but he's just like, the whole time you can see his facial expression is, please stop talking, this is madness. There he is. You see that? Oh brother, what have you done?
Disaster. I mean, it's the weirdest slippery slope argument I've ever heard, especially in a political setting. And he later tried to clarify his statements, but he didn't have to go there, right? So the community is concerned about ice fishing in a certain area because it's a safety risk and they're worried about the town having to deal with the liability of that. Just explain that. We can't have people getting injured or dying around here, okay? We don't want to pay for that. We don't want people to get hurt. Move on. Why do you have to go to prostitution? It's like weird fear-mongering out of nowhere.
No, some right-wingers are obsessed with sex, and they will
really
bring everything back to sex, including this guy, by the way, given his history. We'll come back to that in a second.
Yeah, it's coital recall all day, every day.
Totally. So, but I didn't even know there were ice shanties. I didn't know if that was a thing.
Yeah.
What are we in Frozen 3?
No, come on. You got to get with it, Cenk. Okay. As someone who is familiar with ice fishing myself, sometimes you want to set up a shanty in order to, find shelter as you're on an ice fishing trip. Duh.
Okay, I hear you. But
by the way, I know nothing about that. I read about it.
No, I'm with you. And one tent, you can call it a shanty by itself. Okay, that's what you do for ice fishing, no problem. Although it has its own set of issues, right? But he seemed to be imagining a shanty town, right? And then obviously, if you have an ice shanty town, then prostitutes will show up on the ice. Will they? Is that obvious? Who are these legendary ice prostitutes?
No, so let me give you his clarification on the statement. And by the way, the amazing thing about this story, I guess they don't play in Hudson, Ohio, right? They take their ice fishing seriously and they don't mess around with any foolish arguments because he stepped down after this. He stepped down. But before stepping down, he released a statement trying to clarify what he was saying. He said, my comment about ice fishing, the permitting of shanties on lakes and prostitution stems from my experience as a former television news reporter. I'm sure it does. Covering law enforcement agencies which have made arrests for acts of prostitution and ice fishing shanties. When discussing proposed legislation, it is wise to discuss the potential for unintended consequences. My statement was to enlighten counsel that the future permitting of ice shanties may lead to other issues.
But wait a minute, if the prostitute's gonna show up in the middle of an ice shanty, wouldn't they also show up anywhere else? Is it like, oh no, I can't go to the local corner or online. The only place I can sell my wares is in an ice shanty.
No, I love that I love the argument. No, everyone, we need to implement vaccine mandates because if we don't, it could lead to prostitution.
There you go. Okay. I mean, look, it does start with drilling holes, but I don't know. I don't know if that's where his mind went. No, but his mind is constantly there, right?
Yeah, he's in an official government setting, and he's thinking about, he's got prostitution on his mind. It's insane.
Yeah. So tell us about his former comments, because it gives you a sense of how this guy is constantly going towards, in the words of Charlie Kirk, sexual anarchy.
Sexual anarchy. So in the past, he had fear-mongered about high school seniors reading a book that talks about human anatomy, and thus he thought that it was like an obscene book, right? So I want to go to that. He said this: it has come to my attention that your educators are distributing essentially what is child pornography.
No, Jesus.
It was not child pornography, okay? It was literally a book that talked about human anatomy. I've spoken to a judge this evening. She's already confirmed that that wasn't true. So I'm going to give you a simple choice. You either choose to resign from this Board of Education or you will be charged. Well, no board member was charged, no board member resigned over child porn because that child porn didn't actually exist. Summit County Prosecutor Sherry Walsh said that Shubert didn't understand child pornography laws and that he wants to create a public battle over censorship. She also called his actions reckless and said they lead to threats to the school board members, making some too frightened to leave their homes. Like, it is amazing to me that he didn't resign after making those insane comments.
Because that's now become normal in the Republican Party.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, because, so look, I looked at the examples and it's a textbook that has a lot of different exercises and some of them are a little racy and weirdly so if you ask me, but it's not the end of the world. But in this district, they weren't teaching any of those. So he went and found a problem that doesn't exist.
Yeah, the book, by the way, wasn't assigned to the seniors.
Yeah, so it's like a sexual solution in search of a problem.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, okay, look, you got to watch out for the ice prostitutes and the child porn in the books that aren't being taught.
Yeah.
And so why are you always constantly banging them? Because it's in his mind. And that's why, as we'll talk about later in the show, Charlie Kirk sees Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre, and it's like, sexual anarchy, what are we doing, right? And so, because they're obsessed with it, and that's why they're always trying to like say, oh, don't do that, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do it in that position, we don't want you to. You know, the Republicans, fairly recently, it's a guy that worked in the Trump administration, we're still trying to ban sodomy, that's anal and oral sex for every American. I mean, they're right up in your bedroom, okay, and in your privacy, and they're constantly thinking about sex as they pretend that they're the ones trying to protect you from the evils of sex.
You know, it's interesting because I just remembered when I was in high school, one of the programs that my high school had was, instead of like an elective on campus, you had the option of either interning somewhere or they would drive you to the local community college so you could take classes there. And when I was in high school, I took a human sexuality class at Los Angeles Valley College. And like, we literally, I remember, watched porn in like one of the classes.
Yep.
And like, look at how I turned out. I have the most boring life. I'm married. Like, you know, everything's okay, guys, all right? It's not gonna be the end of the world if a high schooler learns about sex. I guarantee you, they've already learned about it. It's better to learn in like a more educational environment, if you ask me.
Yeah, no, it was at college for me too, but you happen to be in high school taking a college class. But I took human sexuality. You know what the topic was? Sexuality, okay, which we have as human beings. Everything's gonna be all right. You need to just stop freaking out, okay? In other words, let it go, let it go.
Oh my God.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.